Hi. Thanks for coming tonight and watching Somerville Overcoming Addiction. First, I would like to say happy Halloween to everybody, and I hope your parents that are out there with the children getting candy that you examine it. You know, and if you have any doubts about it, get rid of it. It's not worth it. You never know what's in that candy. And we have a special guest tonight who was already on the show last week, and her name is Cheryl Rayner
Jouer.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here to discuss number 4. And we choose to say, don't vote. Vote no for number 4.
Vote no on question 4. Okay. Correct.
And what would you like to talk about first?
Well, let's see. Where do I begin? Well, you want to begin with the candies.
That's right.
Well, let's start with this 24-page ballot initiative. This right here is a summary for question 4. This was written for and by the marijuana people, the marijuana industry. So they pretty much wrote this initiative and said, here, Massachusetts, if this passes, this is what you're going to follow.
Okay.
So they did that. Most people out there believe that we're trying to take away their pot that they smoke, and that's not the case. In 2008, Massachusetts voters they passed a ballot that decriminalized small amounts of marijuana, so an ounce or less has been decriminalized, and what that means is it's not a criminal offense anymore, but a civil offense. And the fine is $100, but in most cases, the police don't even enforce that. Mm-hmm. So you can actually have an ounce or less, which is about 50 joints on you, really? At any given time.
I thought it was a few joints, but an ounce is an awful lot of marijuana.
Well, it depends on how you roll it, but the average is about 50 joints, yes. Oh. Yes. And so we're not trying to change that. That's already been a law. Right. So in 2012, Massachusetts voters approved a ballot measure to legalize medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. And as of September, there were 169 prescribing physicians and 37,299 patients that are getting medical marijuana. Right. Right now, the industry is trying to come out with their commercials, which you may have seen, vote yes, with medical doctors, a nurse actually doing the commercial, trying to convince the people that we need this medical marijuana. Well, they're actually tricking you because medical marijuana is already been legalized. We passed that in 2012. So
this is for recreational use.
This question is for recreational. So, so the first thing, the biggest thing that I want to talk about as far as the recreational goes, and this is the part that really scares most people because they really don't have a clue. 37 days after election, if this should pass, so on December 15th of 2016 of this year, you, myself, your family can grow 12 plants in your home. 6 per person, 12 per family. So your neighbor can grow it. If you don't want it, you don't have to, but your other neighbor can grow it, and there's not a thing you can do about it. Right. There's no registering, there's no licensing, there's no tracking, there's no taxing. You can just grow 12 marijuana plants in your home. And when we tell people this, they're totally shocked because they don't realize that this is what's in the summary question. This is what will be law if this should pass.
Oh, that's quite a bit. That's an awful lot of, that's a big garden.
It's a big garden, yeah. So each plant grows to about 5 feet tall, and it matures in about 5 months. Right. It yields about a pound of pot, which is 16 ounces. goes for about $250 to $350 an ounce.
Right.
So what is in the summary question, this initiative right here says you can give away 1 ounce of marijuana from what you grow.
Right.
You can't sell it. And you can have on your possession 10 ounces.
Well, that's quite a bit.
That is
10
quite a
ounces.
bit.
I thought 1 ounce was a lot.
Right, but when you think about 12 plants, a pound per plant, so what's going to end up happening, and Colorado says this all the time, their black market has exploded. So the pro-marijuana people are trying to tell you that the black market's going to go away, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Because what happened in Colorado and what will happen here is all your surrounding states will come in, take up residence, grow their marijuana, and then bring it back home. So yeah, so that's one of the biggest ones. Andrew Friedman, the director of marijuana coordination for the state of Colorado, said, and I quote, "This is by far the single biggest mistake Colorado has made." And Jim Borgashani, the communications director for the campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol, said himself that he wished he had not put home growing in this ballot initiative. And he also stated recently at a debate, which you and I were just talking about, that I wanted to get that at that 19-minute point, with the town of Sandwich, that he has 2 daughters and he hopes they never smoke marijuana. So, and he's the one that's pushing for this to pass.
It really is amazing. I mean, if you didn't speak to me in Waltham at the Waltham Overcoming Addictions event, I would never have known. Because at first I said, what difference does it make to me if someone chooses to smoke marijuana?
Right.
Why not legalize it?
Right.
You know, but then when you started to talk about growing 12 plants,
right.
First you said it starts off with 6 and then eventually you can do 12? Is that what
Well,
you said?
6 per person, 12 per household.
Okay.
So if you're married or you have somebody living in your home, then you can grow 12. And that's going to start.
It's a family affair, right?
It's a family affair that's going to start this year. So, but you'd be surprised because I've spoken at a lot of coalitions.
Right.
And people would say to me, well, they're going to vote no anyway, so why are you wasting your time? But when I go to these coalitions and explain, like I did to you, what's in this summary, and you're totally unaware of, then that makes all the difference in the world. So, and that's the whole thing, is that, you know, people have their opinion about, yeah, it's just a little pot, what difference is it going to make? But they don't understand that this initiative was written by the pro-marijuana people. And like I said, the home growing, I just touched bases on it. Another huge thing is taxes. So where they think taxes are going to be covered, and I just want to pull out another article.
Oh, you mean about the pro?
Right. So they've taxed, so if this should pass, we're going to be able to tax 12% on this marijuana. So 6.25% sales tax, 3.75 excise tax, and each city or town can add an additional up to 2% tax for their town. So that's a total of 12%. This article just came out on Friday. Senate President Stanley Rosenberg from Massachusetts here is pro, but he says we have to make sure we collect at least enough money to cover all of the expenses associated with regulating and licensing and enforcing the laws as they pertain to recreational marijuana. We also need to make sure we have enough funding to deal with addiction and the public health concerns as well as public safety. And I'm not convinced yet that the rate that's in the proposed law is sufficient to cover all those expenses. So even he, who is pro, realizes that 12% isn't going to cut it. And let me just explain. Colorado taxes their marijuana at 29%, Washington at 37%, Oregon at 17%, and Alaska at 25%. So the marijuana people looked at that overall and said, what can they do to make more money, and they made the taxes as low as they could possibly go. Maine is actually up for legalizing as well, and they've taxed it at 10%. So they're going to be lower if they, yeah, it's low. That's not going to cover any of these things. It's not going to cover any of these things at all.
In the one of the ads they said something about money, the tax money would go towards not only substance abuse, treatment. Not treatment.
Well, they talk about schools, recovery
but they said
centers, schools. They've said our streets and all this.
That's how they're going to try to get people to vote for it.
Right. Think that it's going to bring in a lot of revenue for the state, and it's not. And especially where all this homegrown is.
Who's going to know whether or not you're growing 12 plants in your house
Right.
so that you can get taxed?
Well, you're not going to, you can't, there's no taxing off that. That you just grow and keep it for yourself. Although you can't have more than 10 ounces, and you can only give away 1 ounce.
Right.
So what's going to end up happening is our youth, in my opinion, are going to grow it if they can, but they're going to get it and they're going to sell it, and they're going to make a profit off of it. So, the black market is not going to go away. Colorado just had they just did a show last night on Dateline, I think it was, and it was about 20 minutes long, but it was about the sheriff in Colorado, and he talked about the black market and how the cartels are coming in from all different states, New York, and they're growing this stuff, and they're growing it legally, and they're taking it back with them. So that's a big thing.
But if they're taking it back, they're going out of one state into another.
Right. So that's illegal.
It's illegal at that point.
That's illegal. But to come over to to go to Colorado and grow it, it's legal, and it will be here if this passes. So you can grow it in your home. There is a stipulation in there that the plants can't be seen from the street. So you just have to make sure that you've got your windows closed.
They're in the attic, they're in your cellar.
Yeah, whatever. So they can't be seen, or you could get a $100 fine.
Oh, really?
Really. So yeah. So but the next biggest thing that we need to talk about, though, is the drug driving. And we have a commercial that's going to be played here with Thomas Clady. His wife is doing the commercial. He was killed recently by a driver who had just come from a medical marijuana facility and had marijuana joints, whatever you want to call them, in his car when he ran into State Trooper Clady and killed him.
Did they test him to see if he was he drinking, or was it?
No, he had just come from it, and he
was smoking the marijuana, and he had an accident.
Yes. So medical marijuana, any kind of marijuana, when you do marijuana and you smoke it and you drive, just like alcohol, you're going to be impaired, okay? Unlike alcohol, where you can, if you got pulled over and they blow a test and 0.08, you're going to get whatever that they do. They have nothing of the sorts for Colorado or nothing for Massachusetts. So if you're drug driving and you have THC in your system, which, by the way, stays in your system for 30 days, there's no type of breathalyzer test or anything like that that detects
how high you are.
How high you are. They don't have anything to even measure how high you are. They have nothing in place. And so it won't stand up in a court of law if you were to get pulled over, because if they did a blood test and found that you had THC in your blood, well, it could have been from 30 days ago. So, yeah, so nothing's, it won't hold up in a court of law. So that's a big thing. And according to AAA, Washington drug driving fatalities are up 50% since they passed legalizing recreational marijuana. So that's, and 48% in Washington. So, I mean,
How many states actually have legalized marijuana? Do you know?
yes, I do. I believe it's 5 states have legalized it. Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, sorry, 4. And there's 5, Nevada, California, Arizona, Maine, and Massachusetts that are up for recreational.
So if we already have approved marijuana for medical use, why do we need to legalize recreational?
Well, because the recreational too, what they're trying to do is, well, there's edibles. So that's the next biggest thing. So, you know, when you talk about Halloween, that's my biggest fear for, you know, if it should get, I mean, I can't imagine Colorado right now, kids out trick-or-treating. But the edibles right now are designed for our youth. There's chocolate candy bars, there's gummy bears, there's brownies, there's cookies, there's anything that can go into food or any type of food. The concentrates will go into, and people are getting deathly sick from edibles. It's horrific. So I can't even imagine, like Colorado right now, if my kids were out trick-or-treating, not knowing, you see gummy bears in one package and gummy bears in another, and you don't know which one has THC and how much the level is.
I'd really be concerned about it at that point.
Right.
Because you don't want any children to, when they see it. I mean, haven't we seen it not too long ago that candy was showing up or dots were showing up with other different kinds of drugs in it, ecstasy?
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, even though if we do legalize the recreational marijuana and now they take the extract out of the
plant.
The plant.
Right.
Now, obviously it must be different from smoking and the extract. What,
so
how your high would be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. So
Do you
back
have
in the day,
statistics on that?
yep.
Okay.
So back in the day, when we smoked a joint here or there when we were younger,
Right.
the plant
Many
was
moons
about
ago.
yeah, many moons ago. The plant was between 2 and 3% THC.
Okay.
They have genetically altered the plant to be now between 18 and 19% THC.
Right.
What they do with that plant at that point is they extract the concentrates from the plant, and they make shatter, butter, dabs.
Butter.
That's what they call. That's what the different textures of
Oh, okay.
of what they extract from the plant. Because I'm not a professional with this stuff, but that's the stuff that they put into those pipes that the kids are smoking out of, and they're getting, the concentrates are as high as 99%.
Wow.
The stuff that's going in the edibles, if you had a Hershey candy bar and there's 16 pieces, they don't tell you that you can only eat one piece at a time because one piece may be 30% THC.
Right.
If you ate the whole candy bar, you're getting like...
And I would eat the whole candy bar because I love candy.
Right. Well, there was a case recently in Colorado where somebody ate the whole cookie
Right.
and jumped off a building and killed himself because it's a psychoactive drug and too much of it is not a good thing.
Right.
And so, you know, why do we want to be taking the chance of having this happen, especially to our youth? So these edibles and all this, they're targeting that for our youth.
Wow.
Yeah, so so that's not a good thing.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, and actually, you know, I was talking to my husband the other day, and I said, I just wish I could see one good thing. If somebody had an argument with me and said, this is the one good thing that's going to come out of this, then maybe I would understand a little bit. But I don't see one thing. So let's talk now about the Cannabis Advisory Board. So who's going to see this whole marijuana industry? Well, fortunately, a cannabis advisory board is going to be put in place, and the governor's supposed to pick 15 people
Right.
to be on this board by February 1st of 2017. However, 9 of those 15 people are supposed to be, the summary tells us that they have to be from the marijuana industry.
Really?
So the marijuana industry is going to oversee the marijuana industry. So that's not even a good thing,
No. of course
you know, so
not.
it's
9 out of 15?
9 out of 15.
And what would the other 6 consist of?
They have to be professionals, but not in the marijuana field.
Oh.
There's 2 state health inspectors, and I mean, I can look it up in 2 seconds, but I can look it up right now. Actually, 2 attorneys.
2 attorneys.
No. 2 experts in public health, 2 experts in law enforcement, and 2 experts in social welfare. Those are the 6 that can be without professional marijuana. So I know, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't, but they wrote it. So they're saying, here, Massachusetts, we're writing this and you're going to abide by it. And that's, you know, who wants to do that, you know? It's about creating $1 billion commercial industry in Massachusetts that's targeted for our kids. So it's all about the money. It's not even about health. It's not about safety. It's not about any of that. And, you know, like I say, with this opioid epidemic that we have right now, really, why would we want to introduce another substance into it when we can't even control the one we have going right now?
No, it was really interesting. I was just thinking about it the other day. When you look at the news, and all you hear is about accidents, people being impaired, and you wonder how many of those accidents are caused by people that have overdosed. I remember seeing it in Woburn on the news that this car went into a building, all right? And the 2 people that were in that car, and this was like about a year ago, they actually overdosed.
Yeah.
So now we have a lot of people that are doing heroin, they're shooting up heroin in their own vehicles, and then they're driving.
Right. And
So-
with children in the car.
Yes.
There's even some, you know, that
We have such a huge epidemic.
Yep.
And I see it, you see it. We've lost children over this epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And why doesn't anybody else see it? Or do they see it, but they think it's going to go away, or they're going to ignore it? You know, it's like...
Well, I think the stigma still exists, you know, that people don't see it and don't want to believe it, you know, because it hasn't affected them. So if it hasn't affected them, but I mean, who hasn't turned on the news and seen anything about, you know, drug addiction at all, you know? And, you know, there's the talk about gateway. Is this a gateway drug? I mean...
Right. Well, alcohol is, and it's legal. And now if they legalize marijuana, it will be a second chemical
Right.
that's being legalized. And say, oh, well, why not?
Right. Yeah, right. You did it to alcohol, so... But, so another thing I want to talk about that's also in the summary. So they say they want to legalize marijuana like alcohol.
Right.
So Attorney John Sheft, he's amazing. He actually went to the Supreme Judicial Court to try to have this taken off of the ballot because of the wording, because they did not include edibles and recreational in the first initiative that they wrote. And so because they were trying to mislead the public. So Attorney John Sheft went to the Supreme Judicial Court and tried to get it thrown off the ballot. He didn't get it thrown off the ballot. What he did get, though, was they had to reword it. So now, you know, people understand that it's recreational and there's edibles and that's going to be in the food products. But he also, pro bono, goes and speaks at many events. He goes around and talks about this. And at one of his talks, he had said he read this summary 20 times before he actually got it down. And this is an attorney, so, you know, attorneys know what they're talking about. Before he actually understood it, because the wording in it is so deceiving that, you know, he took it and wrote it so that the normal guy could understand.
Yes,
right.
Layman's language.
So he also works with police officers, and he trains them on matters. And one of the things he trains them on is alcohol. My oldest son actually is a police officer and was in one of his classes. And so Attorney Shaft came out with this right here, talking about the difference between alcohol and marijuana. So in what the summary says, so if you're under 21 and you possess and transport alcohol, it's a crime. There's a fine of $50. Your second offense is $150 and 90-day loss of license. If you do the same thing with marijuana, it's a civil offense. Ticket of $100 in a 4-hour class. Misrepresentation of age, it's a crime for alcohol. Fine is $300 and 180-day loss of license. For marijuana, civil, ticket of $100. Operating a vehicle under the influence, it's a crime for alcohol, plus administrative license suspension and education for anyone under 21 who registers even slight alcohol consumption, or driver of any age who refuses or fails a breathalyzer test. It's a crime. For marijuana, it's a crime, but no administrative consequences for under 21 drivers who have used marijuana or THC concentrate. No definitive tests like the breathalyzer exist to show marijuana impairment, which makes police enforcement difficult. Public possession or consumption for alcohol, ordinance or bylaw in every city and town in Massachusetts authorizes a $300 fine. For marijuana, it's a $100 civil fine. If a retail establishment serves an intoxicated adult who then drives or is injured, for alcohol, it's a civil liability if someone is hurt. License suspension of bar, restaurant, or package store by the ABCC or city town. Also crime 1 year or fined $500. Question, there is no prohibition in question 4, nothing. So if that happens, nothing, because it wasn't written in the summary. So there are just, you want to compare it like alcohol, then it should be fined like alcohol, but it's not. Everything with marijuana is just going to be a civil offense.
That's amazing.
It is. It's crazy. So, yep, those are the penalties. Now, pot shops.
Pot shops.
Pot shops. So there's also a commercial, which hopefully we're going to see shortly.
Can we go back to medical marijuana? Did you say, you were telling me that they can have so many in each city or town?
Medical marijuana?
Right.
Well, there are 8 dispensaries right now that serve medical marijuana. So
Throughout the whole state?
Throughout the whole state.
Okay.
Right. So there's a zoning ordinance in here as well. Okay, so so Lowell has a dispensary.
Okay.
If they made an agreement with the town in the zoning that they could never sell recreational because it's just medical, if they made that agreement, this summary says, too bad, it's all null and void. They can now start selling recreational marijuana, even though the town said no. That's another thing that they wrote and said, too bad. We're going to do it that way anyways. But, all right, so now the pot shops, how many can go in your town? Well, as many as the town allows for one, but there has to be a minimum of percentage of how many liquor store licenses, retail licenses that you have, so not counting your restaurants. So if, let's say, Somerville has 100 liquor licenses,
Right.
you have to allow a minimum of 20% pot shops, which would be 20 pot shops in your town. That's a lot of pot shops. They're saying you have to, you must allow that. There could be as many as they want. They could buy up as many buildings as they want, make pot shops, but you have to allow a minimum of 20%. You know, they're telling us what we, the state of Massachusetts, has to do by their laws, not ours, you know? Now, let's say Somerville decides we don't want any pot shops. Well, again, it's too bad.
It's amazing, 20%. Say we have, what, 200 licenses or 300 licenses? I really don't know the statistics
Right.
on that or the exact number. It's amazing what 20% would be.
Right. So I know, like Marlborough, a small town that I live in, has 16, because I called to find out. So we would have to allow 3. And three is a lot, you know. And where are they going to put these pot shops? They're not going to put them in high-end neighborhoods. They're going to put them in, you know, like where your liquor stores are, you know, where it's accessible to, you know, poverty.
Well, even if you did have recreational pot, like say we do vote this in, couldn't a liquor store sell it there?
No.
No,
No.
they wouldn't be able
No.
to? Just in the pot shop?
Just in the pot shops. They have to have their own, yeah. You wouldn't be able to buy it in a grocery store or anything like that either.
Well,
So
that's good. So where would the edibles be bought?
in the
same pot shop?
In the pot shop, yes. Or at your medical dispensary. So in your medical dispensaries now, they already sell recreational as medicinal. So, but, so let's say Somerville decides that they don't want to do this, they want to opt out. The only way you can opt out is by a special election.
Really?
Yes. So they're going to go ahead and do it anyways. So you can't tell them that they cannot do it. You have to hold a special election, which is very expensive, or by the next biennial election, which is 2018. So, and it has to be on the ballot by vote. So, so your hands are tied there too. So all these towns and cities that are saying we don't want it now before, you know, it happens, well, it's going to take place if this should pass. So I would, you know, recommend, I mean, none of this will be a concern if we all vote no, you know?
Right. It seems to me that they really didn't put enough thought into this.
Well, the pro-marijuana people did,
Right.
you know, but, and so now we have to, you know, it wasn't the voters that wrote this, you know, and that's the thing. It wasn't the people that wrote this. It was the marijuana industry that wrote this. So that's, you know, our hands are tied. So the
Right.
best thing that we can do is go out and say, this is wrong. This is wrong for us. This is wrong for our people. This is wrong for our kids.
Maybe it's too soon to vote this in. Maybe it should be more time invested in seeing what's going on in Colorado and the other states. Also rewrite the bill so that there's less involved.
Right. And that's exactly what the governor of Colorado has been telling us in California and Maine. He's telling us, don't do it right now. Wait. Wait a couple of years. Wait till we have it down pat. Wait till we get the breathalyzer. Wait till, you know, because all the mistakes are being made right now in Colorado.
Right.
So they're saying, wait till this, you know, we've got this down right. But right now, you know, they're telling us by February 2018 we have to have all the laws and the rules and everything in place, or they're going to open up 75 shops regardless. So that's what they're telling us, you know.
What we're going to do now is we're going to actually watch the commercials that you wanted us to show the public. Are we ready to do that now? Yes.
Turn around and see it. Mm-hmm.
That's what this is all about, and this is going to be targeted at young people, and we are. I'm not sure exactly what the benefits of creating a marijuana industry here in Massachusetts are.
This ballot proposal is not just about allowing adults to use marijuana in the privacy of their own homes.
It's about the edibles. That's what this is all about, and this is going to be targeted at young people, and our young people already have enough challenges.
These young people do not need easier access to controlled substances.
Legalizing marijuana for recreational purposes will drive a stake, it will drive a hole, it will stretch that safety net in the cities and towns in our Commonwealth.
There are more marijuana shops in Colorado than there are Starbucks and 7-Elevens combined.
No, I do not support the legalization of marijuana.
We already allow access for medical purposes, and we've already decriminalized possession so that today folks aren't being arrested for using or possessing small amounts of marijuana.
Go out and vote no on the legalization of marijuana, and let them know what the harmful consequences to this Commonwealth would be should this ballot question ever pass.
On March 16 of 2016, Trooper Thomas L. Clardy was killed in the line of duty when his cruiser was struck from behind while on a motor vehicle stop on the Massachusetts Turnpike. The Massachusetts State Police lost not only a co-worker that day, but a brother. The Clardy family lost a father, a husband, a son. We will never forget.
First was introduced to Tommy in 2012 when he transferred into the troop. I actually tried to recruit him for the CAT team because he came highly recommended. His work ethic was second to none. He was a lead OUI guy in the state where he came from C Troop to us. I had the pleasure, I was transferred here in 2014 as the station commander. I had the pleasure of working directly with Tom every day. His work ethic, as I already said, was just unbelievable. And he seemed to always be here, like most of the troopers here. Was a good family man. Was working extra shifts to always provide for his children and his wife.
I was Tom's supervisor on the evening shift. He was an outstanding trooper and made quality arrests. He's going to be sorely missed. Guys like Tom really made my job as a supervisor very easy. Like I say, Semper Fi, brother, we miss you.
Interaction with Tom came at the end of my shift and the beginning of his. He would always come in about 15 to 20 minutes early, and we'd sit down and talk everything about sports, what's been going on with the job, personal life, family, whatever was on our mind of the day. And no day ever went by without me having a smile on my face after talking with him. He was a dedicated person to his family. He was dedicated to his profession. He was an asset to the Commonwealth. He would be out there working his patrol. He was hard, but he was fair, he was compassionate. And that's all we can ask of any of our troopers on the road today. Again, as a family man, that was his #1 priority. He had his priorities straight. And I will miss him, I will miss our conversations, and we will always remember Tom.
I've had the pleasure with working with Tom for about 4 years, ever since he came to the Charlton Barracks. The reason I say pleasure because Tom was a very, very funny man. He had a way with words, the way he told his story, especially his reports that always leave me laughing. Never saw Tom in a bad mood. I'm sure he had bad days like everybody else, but I never saw it.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, everyone. So
that
what
was
would you like to
Thomas.
talk about as far as these commercials?
Well, the first one was with the governor and the lieutenant governor and the Speaker of the House, all coming out against it. So I was fortunate enough to be there when they did that. And the second one was the police officer who was killed by a drugged driver.
Mm-hmm.
So
This actually wasn't the part that you wanted to show, but it was the interview with the wife.
right, the commercial that we have out there with his wife talking about against drug driving because look, it took her husband and she had 7 children. Who'll,
7?
yeah,
Oh my
who'll never see
goodness.
their dad again because of impaired driving from marijuana. He was high on THC.
See, a lot of times people don't think that marijuana would affect you as alcohol does,
Right.
impairing you.
But
to
the
the point
high
you can't drive.
THC does. I mean, it can cause you to like black out like alcohol does. And so you're impaired driving. But again, there's nothing to measure that. I don't know how this is going to hold up in court. I have no idea. But, you know, they know that he was drug driving, you know. So, again, speaking of marijuana, it's illegal federally. So a lot of your pot shops are dealing with cash only because banks won't take the money. So that's another big issue to talk about. Yep.
So how are you going to keep track of what can be taxed and what can't be taxed, and how much money the state should get
Exactly.
at that point?
Exactly. Not if you've got everything going, not everything, but you know, a lot of your cash flow,
Cash only
because it's a Schedule I drug. Marijuana is still a Schedule I drug, and it's illegal federally, and they're allowing states to legalize it.
But what we were looking at the first commercial, that the governor and the
Lieutenant Governor and House Speaker Robert.
right, they were talking about the edibles,
Yes,
and that's what everybody is more concerned about.
right. 50% of the market is going to be edibles.
Wow.
And
Sure.
that's where they're making their they're not making the profit off of the ounce of marijuana. That's not where they're going to make. They're going to make their profit off the edibles, and so that's what they're trying to push.
It's not really a good idea.
No.
And at first I had actually, to tell you the truth, up until our conversation 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said, what's the problem? Why not just legalize it?
Right.
You know, I mean, take, the black market, they're making lots of money, it's coming in from other countries. Why not
Right.
make a profit?
And that's been everybody's mentality of thinking. So we've had to work really, really hard. I've gone to Rotary clubs, I've gone every place, and so has a whole team of people. I mean, everybody's out there just really, really trying to educate. I mean, we need to educate the people. It's not just a little bit of marijuana. It's not just a little joint that
It's
you're
just the way it's been written.
Correct. Correct.
If there was less,
Well, and again, this time with this opioid epidemic is not the time to introduce it anyways.
No.
And like the Colorado governor said, give it a couple of more years. Let's get through this opioid epidemic. Let's fix that first. Let's get that under control first, before we think about introducing or legalizing a drug
right.
into this equation. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, how many years have we? My son had his accident, I'd say, around 1999. And for 10 years, he suffered with addiction until 4 months before, like I said, he turned to heroin because it was cheaper. The thing is, they never really talked about it. The paras and the doctors, it's like they made a deal or something. You know,
Well, they used
they
to
didn't
get,
really
they get
tell them the
kickbacks.
dangers of the drug.
Right,
And they probably didn't even know at that point,
right,
when they first developed it, that it was going to cause an addiction.
right. That's
And now
true.
you look at it 10 years later, or 12, or, 14 years. Well, my son's been gone 7 years on November 15th. And he had an addiction 10 years before that. We're talking 17 years. All right? How many people at this point have been prescribed opioids?
Right,
And it's not even just our younger generation that had accidents and whatnot, and some of them just brought them to school and started to sell out of probably the prescriptions out of their own medicine cabinets that their parents had.
right,
I look at it now and say, it's amazing how much. Now we have elderly, which is going to be a topic that I'm going to be speaking about next week, right? And it's like, we have a lot of parents that no longer have their families involved in their lives. They're getting prescriptions from their doctors, and some of them at this point, they can't remember they already had a pill,
right,
and they're going to be taking more.
right,
So now we have a lot of elderly that are addicted.
right. And they have a program called Buyback that they've been doing to a lot of towns. So for your program next week, helping these people get rid of their old prescriptions.
Well, we have that in Somerville. We actually had one this Saturday at the police station.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that a lot of people did end up bringing prescriptions that they don't need anymore.
Right,
Get it out of the hands of younger
right,
people, as we saw that movie, If Only.
right. So
Right?
in the movie If Only, they had a bowl of Skittles.
Right.
They call it Skittles.
But they were
they
just
take all
drugs,
kinds
so-
of. Who would know that kids would do this stuff? But yeah. So, I mean, it's prescriptions. It's recreational. It's a combination of everything. Again, do we want to add another substance to this equation?
No, I don't think I want to.
No. And so I've got a few statistics here. I'm tongue-tied today. From Colorado.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
What my husband liked most about being a state trooper is being able to help others when in need. He actually loved the job. He liked being able to help people. He liked just the difference that he could make being a state trooper. Wonderful father. He always put his family first. Obviously, it changed my life greatly. My husband's not here anymore. Daddy's not going to come walking through that door one day. Obviously, I was very upset, trying to understand how an adult, a grown man, could get behind the wheel after smoking marijuana and thinking that it's okay. With this bill, I don't feel like we would gain anything from it. I think there's going to be more accidents, there's going to be more fatalities. You're going to have families that are going to be without their loved ones because we're putting people at risk. If it can happen to my family, it can happen to anybody's. Why would we take this risk right now?
It's really interesting to sit there and try to take all that in. A woman that just lost her husband with 7 kids.
Mm-hmm. From a drugged driver, yeah. High on marijuana.
I never thought about it.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of people haven't thought about it.
Right. So
that's why you've been working really, really hard and going out there and talking to people about voting no.
right, it's
on
just
number 4.
right. It's again, it was written by the pro-marijuana people. It wasn't written for our best interest of the people of Massachusetts. This was written for a profit, you know. So
why not just put this on hold by voting no? And then later on, when they do more research, like you said, and we see how Colorado and Alaska and Washington, what was the 4th one? Oregon.
Oregon.
Right. How they're dealing with legalizing recreational pot.
Right.
It's not a bad idea.
Right. Do we have time for a few statistics here?
Sure,
Okay,
sure do.
so from, this is a letter from Denver District Attorney. My pastor actually had it and shared it on Facebook. But it was written to California about California voters are being told that they will see the crime rate go down if they vote to legalize marijuana commercially. This has not been the case in the state of Colorado or the city of Denver. Since the legalization of recreational marijuana in Colorado in 2013, traffic-related marijuana deaths have increased 48%. Marijuana-related emergency room visits have increased 49%, and marijuana-related calls to the poison center have increased 100%. Pablo, Colorado had the highest homicide rate in the state, with 11.1 killings per 100,000 residents. And let's see, the Denver Police Department is dealing with a 900% increase in the unlawful cultivation and manufacture of marijuana concentrate, and a 99% increase in the unlawful distribution of marijuana in marijuana concentrate. The volume of marijuana seized per case has increased from an average of 162 pounds to 5,724 pounds. Additionally, more places in Colorado were robbed and more thefts occurred, especially cars, as 193,115 motor vehicles were reported stolen, up 27.7% in 2015 from the previous year. In 2015, sexual assaults rose 10% in Colorado. I mean, I could just keep like reading this. This is just, and this is from the Denver District Attorney. And this is what will happen here. Crime, rapes, theft, accidents, everything. We'll just...
I don't think they're actually thinking about that.
They weren't thinking about that at all. Actually, the marijuana people were just thinking about the money. They know that this is going to happen. Colorado didn't know this was going to happen. I feel really bad for Colorado and what they're going through because they're in a mess. And anything you read or hear about it, they're in a mess.
So I hope that everybody that's watching tonight will think about voting no on number 4, because it doesn't seem like that's for us. We really shouldn't go that route.
Right. It's not just smoking a little marijuana. You can already do that. Again, in 2008, you can have an ounce or less on you, and it's a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense. They took that away. So you can have 50 joints on you, and you can smoke in the privacy of your own home. So nobody's taken that away. Nobody's taken away the medical marijuana that's already going.
Right.
They can have up to 10 ounces every 60 days, once prescribed. That's what that law is. We're not touching that either. So,
Right.
yeah. So it's a bad, bad law that would take place in Massachusetts.
I think that's... You got my vote.
Well, that's good. I hope I get a lot more.
I hope so too.
I believe, I have faith that it's going to go our way. Vote no. I'm going to be at the polls all day. holding signs.
And there's a lot of people that have already voted. And now after watching this show, I hope they're not saying, gee, maybe I should have thought about it a little bit more.
We did have a few people. My friend Denise was out there handing out some flyers, and people had told her, oh no, I voted yes. Didn't realize. And when Denise would explain to them, you know, the ballot, and they're like, I didn't realize. But I was just told that, and some people changed their mind on the presidential race, but that's another whole story. But I was told that if you could go back to where you voted, your city hall, and request your ballot back.
Really?
Yeah, I was told that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know if anybody would do that, but yeah, there was a few. I mean, once people understand what this is about, they get it. They get it, you know, and like I said.
Now I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Abington Coalition and spoke with them, and as I was speaking, like their mouths, for the first time, because you've heard this, their mouths were dropped. They were like, are you kidding me? You know, especially about the homegrown. The homegrown, that starts December 15th, 37 days after election, so what, 43 days? You can start growing, you can find some seeds and start growing in your own home. And it's not taxed, it's not regulated, it's no registration.
It's not even that, it smells.
Too bad, there's nothing you can do about it. If you complain, there's nothing,
Imagine,
you know.
I've been in areas where I could smell the stench of the weed.
Right.
And that could possibly be a joint. So
Yeah.
now you're talking about 6 plants, eventually 12.
Well, you could grow 12 all at once. You can just, per household, you can grow 12 plants. So
What a wonderful perfume.
every house in Massachusetts can grow marijuana. And there's nothing anybody can do about it.
No.
So,
I want to thank you very, very much for coming back. And I knew that we were going to be able, you had said to me, are we going to be able to talk for an hour about this subject? Well, you know what? Our hour is about over.
wow, that's
And
great. That's great.
You've given us some wonderful, wonderful information for all of us to digest. And when you go into the polls, you make that decision whether or not you want to vote yes or no. But from what we heard tonight, it would be in all of our best interest in Massachusetts if we vote no.
And thank you for the opportunity to come.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.